if anybody is out there that is struggling in their real estate career, or they're just looking to grow and strengthen their business, especially around the fundamentals of social media, then I just suggest to them to reach out.
This podcast encourages and empowers you to create your own unique real story, develop your own unique real statement, and discover your own unique real self. The power is yours. Good morning, Dave Stockbridge. Previously, episode 1600 of the 12-Minute Convos podcast. It's been just 2 years, 1 month, 20 days, 16 hours, and 15 minutes since we last recorded that conversation. That was then. This is now. How are you doing today?
It's amazing. I don't feel a day older.
Oh, that's great.
Do you feel the same? How quickly has that gone?
Hey, it feels as though I spoke to you yesterday. Now, again, in preparation for the conversation, I'm listening to the podcast because there's so many conversations. However, it feels as though there's no time between when we last spoke.
I think the world moves so quickly, but at the same time, when you're at the eye of the storm, you do lose some level of perspective there.
I totally agree. So what's up? I mean, what's the update? How are things going? The last time we spoke, I think the big thing was the building, yeah? The first off-grid commercial building in Australia.
Yes. So, and we're still there, and we've looked at ways to be able to scale that idea down so that we can essentially take it to the masses with residential application. And so it's exciting times at Fluid Solar as we go through that process. There's a couple of developments that are world-class, world-leading enviro villages, and we're hopeful that we turn soil on that in the next month or so. So hopefully by the time we're speaking next, we've got a world-first eco-village sitting here in Adelaide, South Australia.
Wow, that's absolutely amazing. So how has it been, though, working in the space? So when we spoke, it was new, right? But being there, living there, how has it been?
Well, recently we're just on the edges of where there's a lot of these bushfires going on in this part of the world at the moment, and so and it's been over 40 degrees for much of the last week or so, and the building has been remarkably resilient, and that's why now the guys have got the confidence to be able to scale it down for residential application. This is going to be something that changes people's lives when you've got an environment where over 40 degrees you've got a sustainable eco-village where people don't have to plug into the power network in order to remain comfortable. It's an exciting thing to be a part of.
When you are the individual that's developed this, right? Roger Davies is his name, yes? Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. How does he, or how is he, or how has he been affected by this brainchild, if you would?
Well, Roger's quite the polymath, and he applies his genius to many different disciplines in the medical field, as well as he's just an amateur architect and designer, and yet and I think it's from those outliers, those people that aren't necessarily in and of the discipline. They're the people that tend to innovate on the fringes and can lead to revolutionary change in all types of sectors. We see that with Elon Musk in automotive, and we're seeing it here in some small way with Roger Davies and the team at Fluid Solar. So we're very hopeful that once we can demonstrate, and a big part of any change is that people are very much in favour of eco villages. They like the sound of it. It's all the buzzword, but they want to see it in a practical context where there's real world benefit, and that's what we're seeking to do. And I think once that template's been laid down, the application for that across the world is stunning. And so we hope, although it's small steps at the moment, that there's some world-changing ideas there that will take root.
The podcast platform is a very similar format in terms of, hey, it's been groundbreaking, the opportunities it has given others to reach so many other people. What's going on with your podcast? Is it still alive?
Yeah, so we had I think last time we were talking about innovators and influencers, and I went with a personally branded podcast. So for the last 100 episodes,
wow! Congratulations!
Thank you very much. Just before Christmas, we ticked over the 100 mark, and And we've just had a refocus for 2020 because we found that much of that content, much of it was personal branding around me, but much of what we're doing in our business has got to do with the team. And so we wanted to shine a light on that. So in as much as we've got involvement with Fluid Solar House, we have a marketing and sales, real estate and auctioneering business. And so that's the space that we've deployed that particular podcast in. But we've just revived innovators and influencers because we're very blessed in that we've been coming across some of the best and brightest minds in recent times, and just through the experiences of our work and the opportunities that we've had to collaborate with some pretty special individuals. And so we've got some new episodes lined up for our Influencers and Innovators podcast series. So that'll be resuscitated in 2020 as well.
With everything you're doing, there has to be a physical side or a physical focus. And I'm guessing here, if it is accurate, how do you keep the physical side of Dave with everything that's going on with the brain, the push?
I think I think it's grounded in routine and ritual. And I'm an early riser. I get up, I have my 2 glasses of water, a cup of tea. I scan through my emails from the night before, and then I try to get active and outside. I do the 5 Tibetan rites of yoga. And I've got a self-tapping regime, and then after that, I'll look to go to the gym, some isolation movement, just for fun. I enjoy the gym, although the older I get, the less my joints like it. But I still enjoy it, and that social aspect of it as well. So I really I use my mornings to hone my instrument, and so and for me that just works well. I feel like I've got energy through the day then.
Being a real estate agent requires some sort of time management, specifically when family is involved. In fact, across the board, right? Because you could get drowned in everything. So how has everything you've been doing impacted your family?
Well, I would definitely say that a few years ago we weren't leveraging technology to the extent that we could in order to free up time in the evenings. But increasingly, we've turned to technology so that we can have more effective communication. When it comes to contract work, we've been employing online documentation and service so that we don't physically see those people at those points of contact anymore. And that's literally freeing up 3 or 4 nights a week. Also, how we undertake our meetings with our vendors is now often still face to face, but we're using technology to facilitate that rather than being in their living rooms as we once were. And we've found that the clients really appreciate that because they want to save time as well. They're looking for time and convenience. And so I would suggest to anybody who is having those challenges and balancing lifestyle, do look to some of those tools that are available and out there. And if you are just able to manage to shave that 4 or 5 hours a week out of your schedule, then it's certainly worthwhile if that's the extra time that you get to spend with your family.
Specifically, when an agent's time is not just 4 or 5 hours by 5 days, but it's usually by 7 days, right? So you're talking about close to 40 hours a week. That's great. Now, do you offer coaching for those that are listening, agents that may want to learn from you and your mistakes?
Well, that's been one of our more recent additions to what we do, and it's really been born out of the podcast. And so, as we've been talking about those things that matter to real estate agents, increasingly agents have been reaching out to us, and so we've developed some programs and protocols, and just have some ideas. So, if anybody is out there that is struggling in their real estate career, or they're just looking to of course grow and strengthen their business, especially around the fundamentals of social media, then I just suggested them to reach out, because when people were reaching out before, we just didn't have anything to share with them that was reliable, that we knew was replicable. But now we've got some things in place where we're able to offer that, and it's all for free. We're just happy to help people, get them up to speed. And ultimately, if that helps some people sell a few more houses, get a bit more for their clients, and ultimately leverage some lifestyle for themselves, then I think that's a noble thing.
And the principles, they are applicable internationally, aren't they?
Absolutely. The principles, as you alluded to there before, time management. optimizing your own energy through health and well-being protocols. Those things are universal. Customer service, communication, social media now makes marketing those principles international. We've got a great opportunity to leverage and learn from each other. And what we've been doing is working for as long as it is. I'm happy to share it.
I appreciate that. Amazing audience. Again, you're hearing it live from Dave Stockbridge. Dave, where's the best place for them to go to connect with you?
If they'd like to jump onto the Dave Stockbridge Real News Facebook page, that's the best way to absorb the content and keep up to date with what we're doing. And of course, subscribe to the podcast, the Property Podcast with Dave Stockbridge. Jump on there, and if you're a real estate agent, you'll get helpful hints and tips that'll help you along the way. And if you're looking at buying or selling, regardless of where you might be in the world, you're going to learn some of the fundamental principles that have helped me become one of the top 100 agents worldwide.
There's nothing as universal as death, yet it is something we place on the back shelf of our minds. Sometimes some of us place it in the forefront. How do you interact with that conversation, the conversation that you could die today or tomorrow, Dave?
Yeah, it appeared to me in a dream about 7 or 8 years ago that it became really vivid to me what happens in that moment, and whether or not that's actually what does happen. It brought me a great deal of comfort. I worry about it far less now. It's not to say that I'm encouraging it to happen anytime soon, but my feelings about what happens in those moments of transition certainly make me feel much more at ease with that moment when it does come.
Dave, my friend, this has been such a great opportunity to connect and hear that you're not given up. It is both inspirational and motivational, right? Not just for me, but for those listening, that it is possible to follow through, to see the evolution of you by what you are called to function and what you believe you're called to function in. So again, thank you for coming back to the podcast. Before we leave, is there anything else you'd like to share with our amazing audience?
I want to thank everybody who's reached out with respect to the bushfires here in Australia, and we know there's people all around the world that have been donating, and it's certainly catastrophic here, and all of that assistance is going to a great cause. So thank you to everybody who's donated and reached out and has been supporting the efforts over here in Australia.
Yeah, Dave, again, all the best. Be safe out there. Thank you for being on What is Inspired by 12-Minute Convos with Angel Jones. This podcast is produced by Pod Edits. Visit podedits.com for professional podcast publishing.